Okay, so the first 10 minutes, which we're already in there, are for public comment. Do we have any public comment tonight? Stephen, you have anything you want to talk about?
Not tonight, thank you.
All right, fantastic. Well, we're glad to see that you're here and that you've joined us. Steen, do you have anything that you want to bring up in public comment? Okay, fantastic. So that just gives us a couple extra minutes. Hold on a moment. Sue, thanks for putting the agenda in the chat. And please, you guys, you know what? Why don't we go ahead and get started? Let me introduce Sarah Peters. Sarah comes from the Center for Nonprofit. She has been representing us legally for quite some time, and she's now started her own firm. And the previous board, we voted to go ahead and go with her to her new form, or to her new firm, as well as I had a long conversation with the Center for Nonprofit, and they said there's no reason that we can't stay with both, considering they both offer different things. So she's just going to take a minute, nothing really legal, no legal questions. She's just going to talk to us about what her firm can offer us as we grow our nonprofit side of the business. So please, Sarah, go ahead and I'll take it from here.
Thank you, Margaret, and thanks everybody for having me here tonight. It's good to be here, and I was glad that you decided to continue to work with me on the representation we're doing right now. And so my new firm is Clear Compass Legal, and part of why I left the Center for Nonprofit Law is my desire to be able to really work with the clients I have to be more proactive and do be available to do more hands-on work with the nonprofits, looking at their policies, their employee handbooks, really digging in and working on a personal level with staff if I see Dory Under pop on, but if you have staff, working with staff in that way, but really looking in and trying to be proactive with the understandings of how the nonprofit runs and making sure all the policies are in place to do that smoothly and to be ready when, as there always will be, when things happen. And so that everybody, the board and staff, have a good understanding of what those policies are and how to use them. And it's one of the areas that I continue to see as I've worked with nonprofits over the last 20 plus years of just we come to the nonprofits with wanting to do good things and maybe not a lot of experience with running a business, which is what this board of directors is doing, and is running a business and supporting staff as they take on some of those duties. And so that is one of my goals with the new firm, is to help nonprofits be proactive and work with them in whatever capacity needed there. I can also review contracts as they come up and answer other legal questions, but that's my area of focus. And I do encourage, as same that the Center for Nonprofit Law said, I encourage to keep both contact with both places, in part because I'm one person. I don't have staff, so anytime you're working and looking for advice, it's coming to me. And so there will be times when I take vacations or I'm not available. And so the Center for Nonprofit Law has more attorneys on staff and admin support that at this point I don't have, and I'm excited to not be managing a staff. I'll put that out there. It's good to be on my own for now. So.
All right, fantastic.
Yeah.
Are you ready for some questions?
Yes, I see.
I think Dan is in the queue. Dan, are you on mute?
I am. No, I'm good now. So nice to meet you, Sarah. I'm an old friend of David Atkin and have been involved with him for decades. And so anyway, he was providing services. I'm trying to reach for the title of the services. It's well, a registered agent. So I think that Center for Nonprofit will continue to be our registered agent. Yeah, and then
that's not a service I'll be providing.
And you will provide more specialized services. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, so you will not be our registered agent.
No, I'm
Okay.
not going to be a registered agent.
Okay, so you're representing us in specialized areas over and above what Center for Nonprofit Law is offering.
And some of the things that I do, they also do. But the registered agent service is really particular to having a physical address and staff who are there to respond to requests for that. So that's something that Center for Nonprofit Law will keep and continue to do.
Okay. Well, maybe you could brief the board on what services that you are providing to the organization at this time, and then everyone will be fully apprised of how you dovetail with the organization.
Yeah, I think some of the main focus areas I have are on those points in time when nonprofits are going through a transition. Like I know you all just hired Doriandra as your first executive director and your first employee. And so there's a lot of pieces that go into setting that up, and including having, good employee handbook and policies related to that, understanding the management structure between the board and staff when that's happening. And so that's one area that I'm focusing, is really helping when nonprofits are going through those points of transition. And that includes if you have to let some staff go, and what your legal responsibilities are to the staff, and how to do that in a legal but also compassionate way. And
Sure.
Yeah.
Could I ask you to maybe dilate a little bit on what organizations you've worked with in, say, the last 10 years who have gone through similar transitions?
Well, I have some client confidentiality issues there that I can't disclose who my clients have been, but if it's actually a good thing to think about, is get some good get approval from past clients to talk about that representation, which I haven't done yet. But I have helped several nonprofits as their attorney go through that process of actually terminating employment with executive directors, and what that looks like, and the steps the board needs to take whenever that's happening. Because it's not only you're terminating employment with somebody, but you're also terminating somebody who has a lot of access to financial matters, confidential documents that the board needs to know where those are. And so coaching through that process is something that I've both done as an attorney as well as a board president, when I've had to go through that process with boards that I've served on. And then I've also been an executive director, so I've had that experience of working with the board and making sure that communications are clear, and how that process can go sideways on all sides.
Right. It helps to have legal experience in these matters. Well, I thank you for explaining that, Sarah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, and I will. That's a good reminder to me too, to go to those past clients and get permission to actually discuss and give their names. But yeah.
Thank
One
you.
of the
Thank
things is I just started the firm I just left David's firm and at the end of May and launched my firm in June with taking a little bit of vacation off. So I'm still pulling the pieces together.
Super. Glad to be
And
working with you.
just so everyone knows, actually, Sarah wrote Dory Andrews' contracts before she left the Center for Nonprofit. So she's familiar with that, and she is currently has been representing us for quite some time through some legal issues that we're having right now. So we just chose to maintain that relationship and have that continue. Janet, sorry about that. I see you have your hand up. Did you have a question?
I do. I have kind of a few various questions. Who was it that was speaking with the questions prior?
That was Den.
That would be Dan, our treasurer.
Okay. Thank you, Dan. He touched on the subject about authorized agent. Who is the authorized agent?
The Center for Nonprofit Law.
Okay, thank you. Second question real quick is just spot questioning. Can a nonprofit also be a limited corporation for, I know very little about it, but I was just curious if the two can be work together to, I understand limited corporations kind of protect financially businesses is my understanding. So with the fact that we're having this addressing some legal issues, twofold question there. Will we as a board be debriefed on what those legal issues are or give a broad brush of it?
Can I answer
And-
that, Sarah? We've already talked about that, Janet. And right now there, it's confidential. We talked about it in
Okay, well, could
in a
I get
meeting and
Could
I'm
I at
sorry?
least get an answer whether there was a debriefing with as a board? Because I evidently I was not present.
yeah,
Okay.
we all talked about it when you first got elected and onto the board.
Okay, do you know what date that meeting was where the
I couldn't
debriefing?
tell you off the top of my head.
Could the secretary look that up?
Sure, we'll try to look it up and send you the
Okay.
YouTube video you can go and watch.
And then
I don't think
my,
there is a YouTube video actually because it's confidential.
yeah, and I realized that. Was there a quorum present for that discussion?
Yes.
Okay. My question next would be that, asking Julie this, she'd be the most knowledgeable, whether she thinks, in her expertise with the law, if it would behoove or be beneficial at all to be both a nonprofit with the LLC and also as an LLC.
You must mean Sarah. I'm sure I don't have any experience.
Sarah, I'm sorry, Sarah. I'm sorry, you're right.
Janet, I would want to know a little bit more about what your concerns are there, but in general, I mean, the Whitaker Community Council is formed as a nonprofit corporation at the state with the state of Oregon, and that nonprofit is what applied for and received your 501c3 status.
Yes, and that's a tax status, as I understand. Nonprofit implies that there's a special provision on as a nonprofit with regard as a tax status, is what my understanding is. Please tell me if it's different.
Well, a nonprofit corporation incorporated at the state level does not necessarily have to go forward and get a federal tax exempt status. It doesn't mean that they actually qualify for that. Anyone can incorporate as a nonprofit. That nonprofit corporation, when they're incorporated, does have requirements at the state level of how they operate their voting structure, like having the bylaws, or in your case, a charter, which is your bylaw document.
Okay.
And so that charter and bylaw document gives you the framework of how the board operates. It's also under the rubric of the statute in Oregon that even if it's not mentioned in your bylaw document, that's there. That you're subject to those state regulations.
Correct. I understand. So,
So I would, on the liability piece, I'm not sure what your exact concerns are, and we could discuss that later at a different time, since this is kind of just an informational meeting. But I would say, as far as the liability, the board of directors, if they are operating within their role as the board, and they're taking care and being, diligent in their review with what's happening, there's a lot of protections that the state of Oregon and the Federal Volunteer Protection Act provide for those volunteers. And so that, your question about the limited liability corporation, it's not really necessary. The state structure for nonprofits actually provides just as much or more, as long as those nonprofit board members are following.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that. Does WCC get any federal protection tax wise in the state of Oregon as a listed nonprofit?
You do have the 501c3 tax exempt status, and so that would be what you're filing your taxes under and meeting those requirements.
So that covers both federal and state?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay, thank you. That's all.
Thank you very much, Janet. Do we have any other questions? All right, fantastic. Well, Sarah, thank you very much for joining us.
You're welcome.
Like I said, if you would like to stay on, you're more than welcome, or you can sign off at this point, whatever's better for you. We do appreciate your time, and I look forward to working with you in the future.
Yeah, we look forward to working with you all, and we'll be in touch with next steps.
All right, fantastic. Thank you very much. And you have everything that you need right now, right?
I believe so.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you. Have a wonderful evening.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Yeah.
Okay, next up, we have Thea, who I think I see. Thea, are you in here?
No, I am here.
Yeah, so Thea is going to give us some updates, several of them. It's been a busy week. So Thea is our Parks and Safety Liaison between the Whitaker Community Council and the city. Thea, I will give it to you.
Okay, great. Folks, I'm going to do the best I can and as fast as I can. I had surgery today on my face, hence the beautiful Band-Aid. I have some stitches and had things removed on this side. So if you're young, stay out of the sun, put sunscreen on, wear a hat. It's all from my youth and growing up in Southern California. And my Tylenol is starting to wear off. So I'm going to give you a couple of updates. The first is just a little background history. I mentioned at the general meeting, Scoburg Gardens. Just to make everyone aware, if they're not, the conversations started around 2014 on getting the city to come and renovate at Scoburg Gardens. The actual process began around 2017. So it took 3 years to get the city to a meeting and say, we want our input. We want you to hear the neighbors' input. At that time, Sam Hahn was the board chair, and then Emily, and I've forgotten Emily's last name. She was the next chair, and then Chris Gadsby, then Delenia, then Ian, and now Margaret. And the city of Eugene Parks and Open Space has come to lots of meetings. Emily has kept all those notes over the years, and they are starting to go through the surveys that have come in from everyone, and they are hearing yes, less concrete, yes, more trees, yes, new play structure. And I know that throughout all the meetings, people have always said they wanted a new play structure and they wanted a bathroom. So I encourage everyone to go take this survey at the city council that the city still has up. And if you're not happy, write the city council and let them know, because Parks and Open Space have done this as a courtesy to us. They usually don't go into neighborhoods and ask what they want to do. It got put on hold for Skinner Butte Playground. The renovations got put on hold for Sladden Playground. The renovations got put on hold for Waterfront Playground or Waterfront program, and they are promising that they're not going to put them on hold again. The neighbors have been asking now for almost 10 years. So please encourage people to take that survey. So that's Scoberg Gardens. They also have the water turned on back there. So hopefully, Julie, that's working better, and they will be making sure it's cleaned for the anniversary party. And I will be calling all the heads that are in town to remind them to clean. And I apologize that I did not call them on Wednesday. My bad. I thought they, they're paid employees. I'm a volunteer. I thought they would get it clean, and they didn't, obviously. The other big issue is WJ. So I'm hearing from lots of neighbors, actually people all over the city, that they don't feel safe. It's not safe. You have to lock your car when you drive past right now. One of our gentlemen that has been housed in the neighborhood he's a neighbor. He's been a neighbor for about 5 years now, has had 2 bikes taken. On Saturday, I happened to see his bike that was the second one that was taken. And it had been spray painted black, and I stopped my truck because I was going to grab it and get him a new front tire, and 2 guys came at me with baseball bats. So I kept going. I didn't stay. But I did talk to park ambassadors, and they think they have it. So they said they're going to bring it to me if they have it, and I'm going to get him a new tire and get him his bike back. So that's kind of exciting. Our park ambassadors are the first resource out there. And one of the things they do is there's a myth out there that they just kick people out of the park. They don't. I'm going to see if my camera will show you this. You can't read it, of course, but it is a social service resource card. It has Cahoots, it has the navigation, the Nest Center, it has Lane County Human Resources, it has the Human Rights Offices, it has Buckley Center, Community Court, the Dining Room, Eugene Mission, Eugene Service Center, Community Center, Eugene Service Station, First Place Family Center, Hope and Safety Alliance, Hourglass Crisis Center, St. Vincent de Paul, Rapid Access Center, Shelter Care, Station 7, Whitebird, and then more importantly, it has a QR code. This QR code came about from a few years ago. I went with Chris Gadsby to the shelters that Pastor Gabe is building. And there happened to be somebody there from Hack for a Cause. And I said, we need some kind of app in this town that says where there are beds, places to stay. And she says, well, we're doing Hack for a Cause in another week. We can come up with that. Well, they finally did it. Somebody has an app that you can put this QR code out and it will tell you where a bed is available. So I just talked to the park ambassadors and I said, why don't we have posters of these on all the running boards around our parks? And he's like, that's a really good idea, because this is the first thing they hand out. And they say, hey, you can't sleep in the kids' playground. This is not an appropriate place. But here, let's see if we can find you a bed. Let's get you some food. The downtown dining room's open. So there are some resources out there. They're not the person that comes in and goes. These resources were actually put together by 2 Eugene Police Department officers. One of them is now retired. One of them is still our parks officers. So they are the ones that started this, getting the resources out there. In light of WJ being housed with lots of people, it's not safe to go in there right now. It's got a lot of bike chopping happening. When Breakfast Brigade comes in and feeds, there's about 150 people and they hang out. And then when park security comes in at night, they move across the street to buy Shelter Care, and you can't walk down the street anymore. The businesses are having a hard time. Residents are having a hard time. They can't walk to Bren's Red Apple. It's just been a nightmare. So they came and said, can you talk to Burrito Brigade? So Margaret and I reached out to Burrito Brigade. Burrito Brigade says, we're not feeding, it's Breakfast Brigade. Breakfast Brigade was Catholic social workers. The city a couple years ago said, we'd like to offer you a space to feed people. The park isn't an appropriate place. They offered them community court area. They wanted them down there because community court is now open to all of Eugene. It's not just a downtown feature. If I've got some issues and I go to community court helps me get those taken off my record and then helps me get the resources I need, whether it's ID, whether it's food, whether it's housing, they work on those things. Breakfast Brigade does not want to go feed there. They have rented their vehicle from Burrito Brigade, and Burrito Brigade is a pass-through, kind of like WCC is for the Whitaker Community Market, and they helped get the permits. The permits go through till December. So Margaret, Jennifer from Burrito Brigade, and Joni, a volunteer for the Breakfast Brigade, and I met on August 14th. And I suspected it, but I never wanted to say that's really what's happening. I asked if there was a way we could work with them and help them find a place. And maybe we fed one day a week in Whitaker, but we found other places around the city to feed. And Joni was very perceptive to that idea. And she shared with us that sometimes they have families that come in to get food. And if it's a woman and a child, or even a father and a child, they rush them to the front of the line and they ask them to have the children leave the park immediately because they are feeding people that are not allowed to be around children in the park. I don't know about you folks, but I have a real problem with that. We have a skate park there. And that's a little scary to me that they're openly, knowingly, everyone has to eat, but we have lots of places. Downtown dining room is available. Children aren't in the downtown dining room. And we were given a letter from the notes. And Margaret, it's a long letter, so I'm thinking it would be better that I just send it to you and everyone can read it at their own time and process it at their own time. They were very willing to work with us, okay? But the part that bothered me the most was the final paragraph, and I'll read that with you, and then I'll send the letter for you folks to have.
Who is they, Thea?
This is Joni from the Breakfast Brigade, the volunteer we met with. I asked for a copy of the notes. It said, they have suggested, that's us, that BFB, which is Breakfast Brigade, serve Washington, Jefferson fewer days and travel to another park, church, open space, or area. In doing so, their hope is that this would deter those who remain throughout the week. It was pointed out that due to FFLC, that is Food for Lane County's guidelines, BFB cannot serve in places that have select clientele. BFB is already permitted at Washington, Jefferson. What would be the impact on that permit, and what would we need to purchase new permits? Many clients are fearful of the courthouse. Some of our clients cannot be near schools. There are numerous issues to be discussed. And they want to have more meetings. Well, today, Jennifer met with Breakfast Brigade, and Breakfast Brigade says, we don't care what anyone says. We are coming to WJ and we are going to feed 4 days a week, and we don't care. The city of Eugene has asked Whitaker to take a stance, Whitaker Community Council and the community. Burrito Brigade has asked Whitaker for their help, and no one wants to look like the bad guy and say, don't feed people. But Margaret received a letter from a neighbor. You know, we're finding needles all the time again. We weren't finding needles. We're now finding needles all the time. We have drug dealing and prostitution back in all the parks along the river. Yesterday, we had 2 young women that were strung out next to the park that I live next to in the kids' playground. And I was out picking up trash and needles and other things. And park ambassadors came by and were going to talk to them, and they decided to leave, and they left behind a safe. It was a small safe that they had opened up. Today he picked up, there were 16 meters, I'm not sure if you folks are aware, that were cut in downtown. And today he picked up a meter down by the river, one of the parking meters that had been ripped off earlier in the week. Lane Cahoots is still in talks with Lane County. Lane County has rolled out one van. The van goes from Florence to Oak Ridge. Chief Skinner tried to convince Lane County van, it's a Cahoots style van where they have psychologists, to start in Whitaker because he knows that's where a lot of the problems are. And they now have it on their website how long it will take if they're in a certain area. And they won't respond to certain calls that Cahoots used to respond to, but they don't want Cahoots to respond to it. So we are in a whirlwind tornado of who's going to respond to these calls. We don't know yet. And so if I call for a safety check, on someone, they may or may not respond. We have people riding motorcycles in the parks now. They get their dirt bikes out and ride on the weekends just for the heck of it.
Sophia, tell us about the safety check that you tried to do last week. Tell us about the girl in the tent and what you were told.
It was a young woman I shared at the general meeting, and Cahoots would not come out. Dispatch would not send EPD or Cahoots, and she did end up leaving with a gentleman, which made me really nervous because anytime anyone asked her if she needed help, she hit her face. And as soon as she left, I went out to make sure there wasn't any trash left, and there were needles there. So I cleaned that all up. I had a long conversation with the chief about that. I will tell you right now, we have a lot more patrols in our neighborhood because I screamed bloody murder. I just lost it with him. I was not a nice person. And then on Saturday, when I went by and saw what was happening, and you could literally not go down Washington or Jefferson without going down the middle of the street. There were no sidewalks available. You couldn't walk in the bike lane because there was trash, and there were also drug deals going on in cars. There were people walking in the middle of the street that were pretty intoxicated, or their voices were pretty bad, one or the other. And then my neighbor shared with me at our weekend garden party that when she was coming down the street with her 5-year-old, there was a man standing in the middle of the street on Washington masturbating. So we're back to jungle in the park again, and parents are afraid to take their kids there. They want a picnic there. They want to be able to walk to downtown and walk back into our neighborhood, walk to Old Nick's, walk to Pizza Wheel, walk to Cider Works, walk to REI. They can't do it right now. So safety is where people are thinking. And so I called our city councilor, Lindsay Leach. I sent her a text. I sent her a picture. I sent Randy Groves, because he is someone who answers me when I write letters to him. And he picked up the phone and called me and said, Thea, I'm going there right now. And he went down and took pictures. And he called me back and he said, it is time for Whitaker residents to start writing city council, and for that matter, residents all over the city, and saying, you need to put our safety first. You need to pick up the trash. You need to take care of criminal elements, start enforcing the rules. Park ambassadors have asked if they could not have shopping carts in the parks. There's no reason for a shopping cart in the park. EPD wants to find stores. And the reason is that if I have a shopping cart, they can't prove that I took that shopping cart. Den might have taken the shopping cart and then he gave it to me. So they have to have who actually took the shopping cart before they can prosecute. So that means going to the store, viewing the camera and seeing if I was actually the person. So what they're doing in either Medford or Grants Pass is they're finding the stores for having their shopping carts all over the place. I would love to see that they say no shopping carts. I know that sounds like we're penalizing the unhoused, but at this point, I'm exhausted. We're beyond compassion fatigue here now. I'm just flat out exhausted. And I would also like to see no sleeping. Right now, there's not supposed to be any no camping within 1,000 feet of a school, a waterway. And I would like to see no sleeping next to children's playgrounds within, 500 yards or something. I think you should be able to lay down on a blanket and take a nap. But you shouldn't have your sleeping bags and all your trash around, and you definitely should not be in the kids' playgrounds. And that's what we're seeing right now. We're seeing actual tents being popped up. I know it sounds harsh. I feel like our new motto is for Eugene is enable. Enable Eugene. Let's enable you to do whatever you want. So, and I'm scared to speak out because the last time I spoke out, I had some repercussions. So I would like you folks to talk about it and then let me know what you want. I am really tired. My face really hurts. I can take 1 or 2 questions and then I got to go to bed.
Okay, Janet, you're in the queue.
Hey, Thea.
Hold on, Dan. Janet had
Yeah.
her hand up a while ago.
Okay,
We'll
okay.
get you're next. Janet? Janet, do you have something that you want to say? We can't hear you. Well, Dan, why don't you go ahead while we're waiting for Janet?
Okay, happy to. Thea, I want to thank you for all the hard work that you've been doing for decades and you're continuing to do for the community and for our parks. I want to just speak to the fact that yes, you're exhausted by this. And part of the reason you're exhausted by this is that when you bring this up at Whitaker Community Council meetings, you actually have WCC board members running you down and running me down and running anybody down, saying that we should somehow deal with this problem in the parks and to prevent simple nonprofits from deciding that they want to offer food services in the park when everyone knows it's creating a massive problem because of the homeless draw. We've had members of this board run you down in previous meetings and run me down saying that we were trying to cleanse the park. Okay? I mean, how obnoxious. While talking diversity and inclusion out of the other side of their face. I mean, it's an absolute insult to the community and to people like you who are doing the hard work of this community to have board members of this organization and other members of the community running you down. So I'm completely in support of what you're talking about. And this organization is being asked to take a stand on this bullshit. And why are we not doing that? That's the big question. So that's the end of my comment. Thank you very much, Thea.
Thank you
Thanks,
very
Dan.
much, Dan. Go ahead,
Maybe-
Thea.
Thank you. Maybe you can talk about it tonight. Janet, did you get yourself unmuted? You're still on mute.
Let's see if I can help you, Janet.
The city has called me in a nice way. They called me a bulldog, and I think I shared with you last week. They called me the lizard that doesn't let go of its prey, even if its head gets detached from its body. But they said that was a good thing. I am very persistent with them, but I do encourage you as individuals, not as board members, but as individuals to write the mayor city council email. It goes to every city employee, head of department, Sarah Maderi, and the mayor as well. So it goes to all the councilors. And I know that Margaret received a letter tonight from a neighbor, and I'm not saying we shouldn't feed people. I'm not saying people shouldn't be able to sleep. Hell, I want to go have a glass of wine in the park. I think you should be able to have a beer or a glass of wine. But what's happened is that our regular unhoused are being attacked. And even our food pantry on our street, Amy had someone go in and break into her refrigerators last weekend and took all the food out of her refrigerators and stole a whole bunch of stuff. It's becoming a major issue on our street with the crime. They're preying on our regular unhoused. And I'm also still pushing the city to say, please provide park hosts, provide a space for an individual who cannot go inside, who will never be able to go inside, but they could be a park host and they could keep an area clean. Okay. So I got about 2 more minutes in me, and I see that Sue's got her hand up.
Yep, go ahead, Sue. Janet, I'm sorry, I can't get you off mute. Sue, you're in the queue. Go ahead. You're on mute, Sue.
She's trying to unmute as well. It's the red speaker down below, folks, the little microphone.
All the way to the left.
Yeah, for me, it's not red, it's white.
If you mute yourself, it turns red.
Oh, okay.
Chris is in the
I'm
queue.
sorry, Janet, we can't hear you. Sue, are you still muted?
No, I think I'm unmuted now.
Okay.
Am I unmuted?
We can hear you.
Okay, I'm used to Zoom, and so I keep hitting the wrong icon. I just want to make an observation that it does sound like it's terrible down there, and we've definitely been down there. This is mostly directed at the board, and I think, one of the things that has been mentioned is that we're not taking political stands, but I think we need to figure out a way to urge the city to take humane steps with regard to this issue. It definitely seems like there's a lot of safety issues happening down there. I also want to make a point that we're not seeing any of that stuff at Scobert. We live right across the street. We're not seeing any of that stuff.
They've been really trying to keep Scoburg for everyone to use. And I think you're seeing that effect.
Well, I mean, we live here 24/7, so we actually see all day long what happens. I'm home, so we
Right.
know that it's not happening. And I mean, we've seen people going through the park and resting and whatever, but we're not seeing the kind of thing that's going on at Washington Jefferson.
Correct. So they've been monitoring Scoburg and Sladden, and Washington Jefferson is kind of a free-for-all right now, and they're also starting to push towards the river again. So I'm having a lot of issues. Every weekend, I'm having prostitution and drugs. I'm having people dropped off in front of my house. Today, I had a drug runner dropped off in front of my house with his backpack. And it's become a major issue down around the river again. It hasn't been like this for almost 10 years, maybe more. And it's really scary. And it's going to get scarier because California is cracking down, because guess what? They got to clean up for the Olympics. And the other thing that's happening is Gresham, the town of Gresham, has worked with their social services, and social services have agreed not to feed people unless they are working on, and they're willing to help people, unless they're working on getting their crimes figured out, getting them expunged or whatever they need to do, working on getting into housing, working on getting job training. And so people are leaving Gresham because they're not being fed if they just get to hang out and do nothing all day long and do drugs, then they're not getting fed, so they're moving on. And I think that's some of the influx we're seeing. We're also seeing what happened from UP. So, but it's just not safe. I mean, I lock my doors now, and I'm not a scared person, Sue. I have no problem walking out. I went to downtown LA when I was 16 years old to buy fabric. So. But I got gangbangers at the end of my street right now.
I hear you. I mean, it's definitely, we live farther away from it. So what we're seeing is not that, but it sounds pretty bad. And I definitely feel for people. I mean, we've been hearing about it a lot. So, maybe what we need to do is start coordinating with the city and demanding some action.
All right. It looks like Janet got her hand.
Janet, are you off mute?
I have it unmuted. This is why I don't like Zoom or this kind of format. Can I say something? I back totally what Thea is saying, and I'm not afraid to say it out loud. And I think the city has been derelict, and they've had enough noticing between Whitaker Watch, myself, and many others that have been actively against the criminality in the park. I'm going to move that the city relinquish the Washington Jefferson back to ODOT. They have not done their due diligence in taking care of those grounds. And I think it should shame them by offering to return the entirety of that ground underneath where Washington Jefferson Park back to ODOT or the state of Oregon, to point out the fact that the city has had years to take care of this. And not only has it not gotten better, it's gotten worse. They're slumming and blighting the Whitaker neighborhood because quite probably they've got commercial realtors rubbing their palms to come in and take it over at bargain basement pricing. It happens more often than what you may want to think about or even know. But I say that the council take a vote and pursuing that the city returns that land, skate park included, back to ODOT or the state of Oregon, because they have been sorely deficient in managing that. It's causing distress on property owners. Look at all the commercial real estate signs. Businesses are leaving right and left. You can't even go down to the park anymore, and they're openly doing lewd and rotten things in front. A park is meant for recreation. It's not meant to be a pornography drug fest, and that's what it's become. We just spent $800,000.
Janet, you're yelling at us
soil.
all.
Okay,
So,
we just
please
spent.
don't.
It's my passion. I'm not
I
angry at
know,
you
I
guys.
know. I'm just
It's my
making you aware
passion.
of it.
$800,000 and taking out that topsoil and putting it in, and it's getting all groveled again. There should be no blankets, no laying down. I say return that whole sore mess back to ODOT. Have them fence it up, or better yet, rent it out to business people that actually will put shops. I've seen Portland, Oregon do that to their underspace like that, right where they do the immigration processing. And it looks a lot better than what we have here in Eugene at Washington Jefferson Park. So turn it back to the state, start the motion, because it's clear the city is unwilling to do what's right. And Whitaker citizens have stood up repeatedly with photographs, emails to know. And look at Lindsay Leach. Thea just said it all. She doesn't even respond. There's
Okay.
an agenda being put out by a bigger organization that wants the Whitaker to be blighted to the point that people sell out. And so the carpetbaggers is what I call them, come in, out of staters, and buy primo property. No thanks to the city planners. Thank you.
So just, Janet put a motion on the floor, but just to clarify, and Thea, you correct me if you think I'm wrong, but believe it or not, when I get emails and when I find out information, sometimes it's not about what we say, it's how we say it, but that doesn't mean I don't do research and check it out. So my understanding is that the city does not own the park, ODOT does. And that the city manages that for ODOT. So asking for the city to give it back over is kind of, they don't own it. There's nothing to give back. They manage that property for them. If they didn't, it would be fenced off and filled with who knows what and how and where. And it would just be more places for people to go in there and hide, basically. Hold on a second, Janet. So I think, Den, that you were first, and then Thea, you were next.
Okay, well, my comment is an observation, really, and it is that, yes, many of the things Janet says have truth in them. And it is that the city of Eugene is a poor manager. They don't manage any of their parks properly. We're having an issue with Scobert Park. There are many other parks that there's problems with. Washington Jefferson is just one of them. And I think what Janet is talking about is sending a message. And
Yes.
the message is that this community is tired of the city of Eugene mismanaging everything. They're mismanaging the homelessness crisis. They're mismanaging the public parks. They're mismanaging who they allow to work in the public parks to service the homeless community, and how that is actually managed and how that works
Yes.
out. So it's creating secondary problems that are impacting the community and creating health and safety issues. And it's because the city of Eugene is mismanaging. And let's be honest, the city of Eugene is a limited entity, and they have an enormous load of homelessness and junkiism and theft and criminality going on within that community. And that community is largely impacting our public parks. So what Janet is saying is that what we need to do as an organization is send a message to the city of Eugene that
Yes.
we
Yes.
are really fed up with the way they're
Yes.
mismanaging the situation.
Yes.
That's basically
Right.
it.
I get that. Okay,
Yeah.
Thea and Janet, there's other people. You had what you
Yes.
said, what you had to say. Thank you. We have Thea, and then we have Chris.
Thank you.
So as Janet suggests to have ODOT take it back over, one of the things I will caution with you as you think about how you want to move forward with this, I do think that the board needs to say, we're going to write a letter. I'm happy to write a letter. What I didn't share with you is I'm also meeting with Reagan Watches, who is the new homeless coordinator. And I'm going to put her feet to the fire over this. I am putting the city's feet to the fire. And as an individual, I am writing them and asking for things. But I'm also happy to write as a parks liaison for you to write a letter, have the board look at it, approve it, and say, yes, we like this, or we want changes if you choose to go that way. I will caution you in saying, ODOT take over the park, because if you pay attention to ODOT properties, they allow camping, they allow drug dens, they allow things all along the freeways. There are places that people stay that are run by ODOT. As you come off the belt line right behind Arby's, there's a group of people that have been living there for quite some time now, with a beautiful sign that says there is no camping, there is no building of structures, there's no overnight sleeping, there's no drugs, there's no alcohol. They have a whole list of rules that you're not allowed to do, yet there's 4 structures that are built. And so what has been recommended by park staff, these are the people that are actually doing the work. The people that are out there contacting people and helping people get resources have said WCC needs to take a stance on having them enforce the current park rules, the current parking rules where we have 2-hour parking. We got 2-hour parking put all around the park. They're not enforcing that right now. And then come up with some suggestions of no shopping carts. They tried to do something that was no things that weren't authorized and that weren't for park use. Well, that opens a can of worms. They were trying to stop people from bringing microwaves, shopping carts, refrigerators, and air conditioners, because for a few years, that's what they were finding in the parks. It's a very bizarre thing, but that's what they were finding. So they're now saying no camping next to a children's equipment area, no shopping carts. So then you don't have the excess trash, but you can still come into the park and lay down. You can still rest. Parks are for people to rest. They're not for piles of trash. But if you say, ODOT, you take it over, you're more than likely to get a full-on camp like it was at the beginning of COVID when they used that park. If you tell the city, oh, just give it back to ODOT, because that's letting the city off the hook, folks. And the city doesn't deserve to be off the hook. They really don't. It's time to tell them, this is what we want. We want safety. And we want people in our parks that are protecting our unhoused and our housed. And we want to be able to use our parks. So I'm going to hear Chris's comment, and then I'm going to get off the thing, and Margaret can let me know if you want, because I've really got to go to bed. I hurt like hell, guys. Chris?
Mr. Horton.
Thank you, Thea. I'll make it quick. just want to thank you for raising this issue, which is an important one. As your neighbor on North Grand Street, I can vouch for, I think, the deteriorating condition of Maury Jacobs Park, where just as a parent of two youngsters, the daily lack of control I feel as a parent is something very new to me. You can hear my kid crying upstairs as they're being put to bed by my wife. I lived in LA in a neighborhood with lots of gangs while I was a parent, when my now almost 5-year-old was born, for the first almost 2 years of her life. But I never felt unsafe, and I never felt scared for them. And the amount of needles and cars broken into, and things that have been happening, I think this summer, with increasing frequency, have just kind of alarmed me. And I wonder, just with these points you raised, Thea, specific to parks, specific to what's within our control, as a nonprofit, as well as a neighborhood council, what is in our control to either jointly or officially, speak to the city about, or to vote on, whether it's specifically on the question of how many days a week, or if at all, breakfast brigade can feed in a city park that is within our neighborhood boundaries. What can we as a board formally do? What are 3 options we can consider? I'm trying to be pragmatic here, because there's so many issues that spring from this that represent our voice as a board. I feel like we need to kind of really drill down a little bit here and really consider what these options are that are within our control, within our charter, that either we can vote on or agree on, whether unanimously or by majority, that can be put before us as a voting member of this board. That's what I want to see. And Margaret, as the parks liaison, I look to you, and Margaret as the chair. What is within our control to either put forward or vote on, or carry forward to the city?
I'll answer that. I can
Janet.
answer that, Margaret.
Well, one thing we need to do first, Thea, really quick, is that Janet did put a motion on the floor. And so, just to make sure that we follow the proper rules, is there a second to that, or no?
Could I clarify the
No,
wording?
hold on, Janet, please. Is there a second to Janet's motion?
I want to clarify the motion. What was the motion?
The motion was that the city turn the park back over to ODOT.
Okay, but I would like to clarify that motion, if I may.
Go ahead. Please do it in 2 sentences or less.
I would like to state that the objectives that Thea pursued, and she's probably got them bullet pointed, that those are not met by summer's end, that we implement a dusk to dawn policy and remove the camping, the criminality.
Okay, so that's very different than what the motion was that you put on the floor.
Then make the motion as it is. I say.
Is there a second to the motion that Janet put on the floor already?
You have to let her clarify the motion.
Well, no, but it's very different. Her motion was then that the
No, I made the motion, Margaret, and I get to say.
Please don't. I understand that, Janet.
I made the motion. I get to clarify my motion.
Well, you're making a whole different motion, Janet.
No, I'm not. It's the same
Julie,
motion.
Julie, are you there as secretary?
I sure am. Yes.
Can you read us back the motion that Janet made? Do you have it there?
I can. I'm not sure I can clarify it in the motion, but I'll read my notes. Janet, I believe that the city has been derelict. I'm going to move that the city relinquish the entirety of Washington Jefferson Park back to ODOT or to the state of Oregon. Janet alleges that the city employees are receiving bribes from commercial realtors to drive down property values.
Okay, which is,
She
was that
says
part of
there
the
should
motion?
be-
I just want to hear
I-
the motion.
I didn't hear a concise motion. I heard a lot of talking, and I think that what it boiled down
He
to
wants to turn it over to
that
ODOT.
she wants
Correct.
to
That's
do
what I
the
heard. So
park.
I just want to know,
WJ.
there is a
It's
motion on the
not
floor,
the
Jen.
state.
It is there a second to that motion or no? I don't hear a second. So that motion is no longer on the floor. It didn't get seconded. Sophia, can you please address Chris's comments?
Yeah, I'll clarify so that you guys can
Thank
come
you.
up with
Thank you, Janet, for understanding.
and Janet, I really do appreciate your passion because I know what you go through daily as well. For asking for, as WCC, if I were still on the board, and I'm no longer on the board, I would ask for specific enforcement of the park rules that are there now, because they're not enforcing the park rules and parking rules. They're not enforcing the rules that they have right now. I would 2007, I personally, not on a board, I asked for park patrols, and I was officers on bikes that could help with safety. And I know some people are not for officers in parks, and that's how we did have them though. And Whitaker is the only walkable neighborhood in the city of Eugene, and we are becoming not walkable, and they need to make it safe for us to walk again, to be able to go to our restaurants, our grocery stores, our community markets. And so I would ask for either bike patrols again or foot patrols. Downtown has 7 officers that work downtown. Whitaker has 4, folks, and our officers go from here to the airport, to Bethel, to Green Hill. 4 officers. And they are using the tax funds to fund the officers downtown. But guess what? Friends and all those employees pay tax funds. Grizzlies pays tax funds. Ninkasi's pays tax funds. We should have more officers that help out. And they are giving us more community officers right now. Community officers are great. You could say we want the community police officers. Those were the Margaret Mazzatos that come around and get to know our unhoused people, our regulars, and they know when they're being preyed upon. Okay, so they know that Andrew lives in our parks and on our streets. They know when somebody's picked on him, or like he won't come around right now. He's not safe right now. So you could ask for safety, Chris. So you've got safety so that you make your neighborhood walk. You ask for them to pick up the trash. Right now, parks employees are being told not to go into WJ because it is not safe for them. One of the Breakfast Brigade people has threatened a park employee, so they are not going into the park when there's too many people in there. So you will ask them to start picking up the trash, and then you decide as a group, are you willing to say no more shopping carts?
So what did the city ask our opinion on? I see you, Dan. Hold on one second.
They want to know if we have an opinion on Breakfast Brigade and feeding in the parks. That's one thing they want to know. Do we have an opinion on that?
So I would like to make a motion that we write a letter to the city stating that, and just understand, and I was part of the meeting with Thea, and we have been working. We have a letter from Burrito Brigade stating that they want to work with us. We have worked with them before. Burrito Brigade, what they do is they make about 800 burritos a week, and they drive around in a van and they hand them out to the homeless people, to the unhoused. They do not set up a kitchen. People don't stand in line. They actually go out and they take them to where they're needed throughout the whole neighborhood. If anyone that's been to Washington Jefferson lately that sees what Breakfast Brigade is doing, it's very different. So I would like to make a motion that we write the city, or ask Thea to write a letter to the city on our behalf stating that we would like for them to revoke those permits to start. And that would be a great start to getting our parks back. Den, you're next.
I'll second that. No, I'm going to
Great.
second your motion, Margaret.
Okay, and do we have any conversation about it? Janet?
I'd like that letter to include that we're prepared to put a vote of no confidence in this city if they fail to address the immediacy of the criminality and the unsafe conditions of our park after 3-4 years, ever since Thea has started on this. I'd like them to know that we are prepared to, as a council, put to the city a vote of no confidence. And
I'm not
One
comfortable
step
with
at a
putting that
time.
in my
Hold on.
motion, Janet.
One step at a time here.
Yeah, I'm not comfortable with putting that. I'm just making a simple motion that we ask them, and understand we've asked Breakfast Brigade to just feed 1 day a week, 2
yes,
days a week, and they
one day,
refuse.
one
So,
day.
Elliot, you're in the queue.
Yeah, my request is.
I can't hear you very well, Elliot.
Can you hear me?
Barely.
Can you hear me? Okay. So. my
You're
request-
muffled. I can't
Okay.
hear.
Okay. I'll talk a little louder. So my request is that we just simply set up a work session to draft this letter together all at once.
Yes.
Instead of over,
Did anyone hear what Elliot said?
That we do it collectively together. Is that what he said? The
You
letter?
Can't hear what he's saying.
No, Julie, did you hear him?
Yes,
you
I can hear him.
can you repeat it?
I think a lot of people are unmuted right now, and that's causing part of the problem. Elliot suggests setting up a work session so that we as a board can work together to draft the letter. Is that
Yes.
correct, Elliot?
That is good. Thank you.
Well,
Time is
no
of the essence.
disrespect here to that, but I can't even get people to come to a fundraiser. We're having a fundraiser of the 50th year in the park. We just had a fundraiser at Oakshire, and I was there
Let's
for
keep
6
it one
hours.
topic
Excuse
at
me.
a time.
Excuse me, Janet. I was there for 6 hours, 90% of it by myself. So Thea is the appointed Parks and Safety Liaison. And she has the ability to draft the letter, and then we can go over that letter as a board after she's drafted it. Does that make sense? Are you comfortable with that, Elliot? We're not going to send anything without everybody looking at it first.
No, I would like us to draft it together all at once.
Yes.
And not
Yes.
just review it.
Okay,
Yeah.
well, I vote that we, part of my motion is that Thea actually puts a letter together and then sends it to the board, and then we collectively talk about it.
I've seconded that.
Okay, so Dan seconds that. Is
I
there,
second that.
I hear what you're saying. Does anyone have any more comment about this? Great. Janet, please keep it to 2 sentences.
I vote that,
We haven't called for the vote yet, Janet.
I'm stating it. Would you let me finish, Margaret, please? Please.
You said I
I
vote.
say
so-
that after this vote, if it's not met with a quorum, that we move forward with Elliot's suggestion. That's
Well,
it.
we'll. So, we have a vote and a second on the table. So do we have any other, anything else that anyone wants to say about it? Any more discussion regarding this specific thing? Thea, are you okay with writing the letter regarding, Burrito Brigade or, the Breakfast Brigade?
I'm okay writing a letter and sending it to the
Sending
board.
it to the
approve
board
it
for the board to go over and then do what
And
we,
do a work session or whatever.
correct.
I'm more than happy to do that. If you guys want to do a work session and take time to do that, you can do that. But I will tell you with the city, time is of the essence. They come back in session, I think, the first week of September. So you want to get it to them before their work session. And I
Yes.
think you also direct the letter directly to Lindsay Leach and Sarah Maderi and the council.
But
you-
Thea, are you okay with drafting a
I'm
letter
happy
for
to
us?
draft a letter. I didn't understand what Elliot said. I would have to have, I heard
He
something about
said
a work.
he would rather the whole board get together and write a letter together, everyone on the board. Have a
So I want you
workshop where we
you
write.
folks to talk this out and then get a hold of me because I'm in a lot
Okay,
of
you
pain
go.
right now.
There's a motion on the floor. I just wanted to make sure you were okay with it.
Yeah,
Thank you
I will-
very much.
I will do whatever you guys need, okay? I
Thank you
appreciate
for
that you're,
all of your work. Okay, so all do you have this, Julie? So all those in favor of Thea drafting a letter for the board to go over?
Are we voting?
We are.
Okay, you need to call the vote.
So it looks like we have Den, Chris, Julie, Sue, Den, Margaret, did you get all that? So we have Margaret, Chris, Den, Julie, Sue, all voted yes for Thea to draft a letter that we go over together as a board.
Okay, 5 is a winning vote.
Correct. Just for Den, Julie. Yeah, did you get all 5, Julie? Great. And just for the record's sake, all those opposed?
I think Elliot voted no on this one.
I don't see. All those opposed. Janet is opposed. And I can't see Elliot, but that's okay. If you guys can see Elliot. Okay, great. So the motion carries. So just to take this a little bit farther, I did a little bit more research on what's going on in the park. We did, like I said, we met with Burrito Brigade. They actually asked for our help with what's happening with Breakfast Brigade. And I don't know if you guys know this, I did a little research and I was surprised. So I got some phone calls from some people. I don't know who was at the meeting. I think it was before this board, but on 6th and Polk, Whitebird put in what they called a rehab center. And that's what it was proposed to us as, was a rehab center. And they didn't come to us. They didn't talk about it, nothing like that. We were just told that a building was empty there and they were going to do some rehabilitation there. So I did a little research and come to find out we have Whitebird, we have CORE, we have Black Thistle, we have HIV Alliance, and we have Looking Glass. All 5 of those nonprofits are harm reduction is what they're doing, and that's it. The Whitebird on 6th and Polk is not doing harm reduction, or is not a rehab center. They're handing out harm reduction kits, which means they're handing out clean paraphernalia for people to do their drugs, as well as naloxone. You know, on a personal note, HIV Alliance has been around a long time, and I can understand why they do what they do. And I saw what AIDS did. However, in our little neighborhood, we have 5 people, 5 organizations handing stuff out like that in our little neighborhood. No wonder people come. Hold on, Dad. So I would like to talk about drafting a letter to Whitebird, asking them, who they seem to be one of the most active, to please loop us in on their activities. Before it used to be that people used to come to the council. Actually, Elliot, you're the one that made me think about some of this stuff. Thank you very much. That we draft them a letter and ask them to please let us know what their intentions are before they open up another facility and what they're doing, because it was presented to us in a very different way than what it is. And, you know, people used to come to a WCC meeting and say, hey, this is who we are and this is what we're doing. And they're not doing that anymore. And we need to be more proactive about that. Den, go ahead.
Yeah, you know, an observation again is I've been watching the plethora of 7-Elevens go in our neighborhood. And there are 3, I think actually 4 7-Eleven superstores that are located within about a quarter of a mile of each other along the 6th and 7th corridor. And one of them is located on the corner of 6th and Polk. And so the fact that this social service is locating on the exact same corner is that they are basically providing services to all of the homeless and the junkie community that is assembling around that 7-Eleven that's located on that corner. And so they found that what they're doing basically is they're following the 7-Eleven homeless community from one location to another, probably handing out harm reduction kits. And you mentioned something, Margaret. I mean, we do need harm reduction in our community, but the problem becomes that if you have multiple social service agencies providing harm reduction and social services, homeless services, drug addiction services, all in the same community, many of them, all on federal grants, nonprofit grants, just as we operate on, by the way. And they're essentially creating a situation where all of those people seeking services are coming into our community, into a very limited, small social space, and they're creating congestion in our parks, difficulties in our parks, difficulties on our street corners. I live very close to the 7-Eleven superstore that's on the corner of Polk and 6th. And I can tell you that I sometimes have trouble driving home without having to dodge homeless people wandering in the intersections against the traffic lights, just because they're busy getting stuff. They get busy getting stuff from the 7-Eleven. And the 7-Eleven is there because they're seeking to capitalize on their core market, which is the homeless community. Okay, so the city of Eugene has been absolutely derelict in citing these. They've approved the citing of these locations. Literally, there are 4 of them within a quarter of a mile within the 6th and 7th corridor. Okay, you've heard this before. Everybody's probably familiar with it. If you're not already, you are now. All right, and I'll stop talking about it, but this is a major problem in our community.
Mm-hmm.
Right. I would agree with that. Sue, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, you did.
Go ahead, Sue. You're on the queue.
Well, I just want to ask for clarification, Margaret. You mentioned the groups that you were talking about, HIV Alliance, CORE, Black Thistle, and some of the other organizations. Are you suggesting that we invite them to a WCC meeting?
Well, actually, it's interesting that you too many people are not on mute because I can hear myself. It's interesting that you asked me that, because Elliot brought some stuff to my attention and I thought about it. And so what I would like to do is for the September 11th meeting is invite people to come in and talk about what's happening in our community. Invite the people that live around the park. Invite Breakfast Brigade, who refuses to leave our neighborhood and wants to come in every day. And they'll still do it if the city revokes their permit. They did before. but invite them to a meeting. Let's invite the people that it's affecting, and let's see if we can have some real conversation about what's happening. And our whole community is being affected. The people that live in a house, as well as our unhoused, are being preyed on horribly by some things that are occurring and that are happening. And so, yes, one of my suggestions was going to be that our next meeting, that we just open the doors and we start promoting. I know, Jen, are you still here?
I'm here.
Okay, so, Jen can promote it. We can send out some invites. We can invite people that, the parks affect, all of it. Yes, that's exactly what I am suggesting to. I think that's a great idea. Would you agree with that?
I do agree with it. I think it needs to be very carefully facilitated because I think it's very important and I think it's a good idea. I also think it could be a free for all. But if it were, because I think open dialogue is most important. And I think I agree with Elliot. Actually, he made a statement a little bit earlier that there's been little participation. And I'm tying this in. I'm sorry if I sound like I'm rambling. Little participation, at least on my part, because I feel like the council is not taking adequate stands on things. And if we actually started to have dialogues with the community, including nonprofits and businesses, and hold them accountable. I'm talking businesses too, because I think this has been a very pro-business council. And I think having dealt with some of the business I've dealt with, like Tiny Tavern Space, the council has done nothing to take a stand on business owners actually encouraging this kind of nonsense. And Den also touched on that issue as well. But in terms of the ones that you've just mentioned, I think it's really important that we do reach out to them and have a conversation and convince them that it's not okay what they're doing. I mean, that's all I'll say. I don't want to ramble.
No, it's okay. And I agree, and I agree with Den. He even said, of course, we need harm reduction supplies. There's a reason why naloxone is out on the street. I don't know that, you all don't know what I do for a living, but I work with EMTs every day throughout the US. And there are places in the US where they're giving out naloxone. They're giving second doses because the drugs are lasting longer than the naloxone is, and the people refuse to go to the doctor. And so if they just leave them there, they will die a second time, and they won't have anyone there to save them. So they're giving them 2 doses of naloxone so their friends can give them one a second time. So those things, there are some things, but the fact that we have all of these services in our community, and I don't see a whole lot of coordinating going on between them. As Den said, a lot of it's just about grabbing the money. This is something that we can do as a council, and that, we can represent it in a positive way to the neighborhood and look for real solutions. Look for things that we can do to create a solution to some of the problems. Go ahead, Sue.
I'm assuming that you are going to make a motion here. If I can tag on to that, and I don't know, that we have some professional facilitation if we do this.
Well, according to our, what do you mean professional facilitation?
I think that trying to do a Robert's Rules kind of thing with this kind of conversation, I think would be difficult. And all I'm asking is that maybe it could be more of a dialogue, but it needs to be a very heavily facilitated dialogue. Somebody who is skilled at dealing with and managing people's emotions and their input.
Well, I will tell you one thing. Doriandra, did you email the code of conduct?
No, I did not. I
Okay.
apologize.
So just so that you all know, we have created for the board, and this does tie into what you're talking about, Sue, a code of conduct from for the board members. And we had some people check it out, look at it, and we're gonna send it to all the board members, and we're gonna talk about it down the road and try to implement it so that we can do just what you said, Sue. And if we can do that amongst ourselves, I don't think that we'll have a problem doing it with I've been to lots of meetings where we've had lots of people. And it can get a little exciting and it can get a little heated, but I think with all the board members' participation, and if we can all keep it on an even keel, I think that we can all make that happen. That's and who knows who will come. And it's all there's more discussion to be had about this as well. I mean, it all comes down to really what do most of the neighbors want. It's not a matter of what we think and what we want. It's a matter of what most of the community wants. And depending on who you talk to, sometimes the neighbors will tell you, no, we want the unhoused people to sleep where they want. And then you talk to a group of people that say, no, we need to do something different. So it would make sense to me that, we try to talk to the community as much as we can to gauge it before we make any judgment, or not judgment's the wrong word, but before we make any decisions on what we think is best for the health and safety of our neighborhood. Go ahead, Sue.
I mean, I get what you're saying, but part of the problem is I think that the council hasn't taken any stands really and isn't taking stands. And it's frustrating. Like, I definitely think that there are, these are very thorny issues, but there needs to be some movement in terms of representing people in the neighborhood, and representing people in a way that is, that benefits the most people. So I feel like what's the point of the council? Is it just a money-making machine? Is that all it is a nonprofit? Or is it actually a representative body? Because that's something I'm very confused about and confused in my own role here.
So we only really had 3 board meetings. You know that, right? The board meetings, like the one that we're having right now. We've only had 3. We got elected in April. That wasn't really a board meeting. Then we had a meeting in May. We talked about what it means to be a board member, blah, 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 blah. In June, we canceled the meeting because of weather. In July, we had the meeting off. And now we're in August. So we haven't really had the opportunity to do what we're doing right now until right now. Does that, if you think back, it's been a very short time since we've been board members. This board. Dan, did you have a comment? You're on mute, Dan.
I do, yeah. Okay. So, Sue's point is well taken. And the issue is, what is the Whitaker Community Council for? What's our purpose? What is our power? What can we do and what can we not do? And let's remember that our function is to be a feedback loop to the city of Eugene and Parks and Open Space and whoever it is and whatever, and Lane County Community Services, and their impact on the community, what they are or are not doing in our community. And primarily our issues are, what are they not doing in our community that are creating a problem for us? And the Whitaker Community Council, if it has any power whatsoever, and if we're going to take Cindy Kohler and Community Services, for gospel, if they have anything, then they have to allow us to have some power. And if we have power, then we have to be able to speak to the city council. We have to be able to speak to the mayor. We have to be able to speak to community services, and we have to be able to have our voice heard. And our voice has to have meaning. And if it has no meaning, and if we're not heard, then there's no point in our existence. And we're having a huge number, a plethora of issues in our community. And they're homelessness issues, they're Scobert Park reconstruction issues, they're City of Eugene dysfunction issues, all sorts of crap going on. But if the Whitaker Community Council cannot and will not take a stand or even write a letter to the city council, then we have no function. We have no purpose. We have no power. And we have no point. And that's what Sue is getting at here.
Right. I understand what she's saying.
Oh, okay. All right. So I want all
I
board members
totally
to know.
understand what she's saying. And we just voted to send, Thea's going to draft a letter
Yeah.
and we're going to send it. And yes, we're talking about the health and safety of our neighborhood and of the people that live here. So
Correct.
if we send a letter to you tell me, then, Sue, Janet, I see your hand, but we're just having a conversation here, which is great. And that's what I want to do. If we send a letter to the city council that is filled with all of these demands and all of this stuff, it's going to end up in the garbage along with all the other letters that they get.
Well, I agree.
However, if we send a letter and we say, look, Breakfast Brigade, they are in our parks, they're permitted under you, and you can't even walk down the street. And we have a letter from them. Breeder Brigade told us to use whatever we have in our power, send it to the city, send it to the city council, send it to the mayor, whatever we can in our power to get to say, hey, these people do not have our neighborhood's best interest at heart. If we send a letter focusing on that, then you know what? We have the power and we can get results. And then if we back it up with something else,
let's prove that.
Do that.
Prove
okay,
that.
We're going to do that.
To every board member, let's prove that to the community by getting them booted out of our parks. If we can't do that one simple thing, then the Whitaker Community Council is useless and has no power, and there's no point.
Well, they asked us for our opinion. Janet? Sue,
I echo what was that Dan that just spoke?
Yeah.
Okay. I echo that sentiment. If we as a council are no stronger in representing our community at the very core of what most people are seeing and experiencing and having to deal with, then there is no point. And to bring in a facilitator, there's nothing wrong with people having their views taken in any way. We do not need to be homogenized and patted on the head to simmer down. I think this has become an issue, a hot one, and a very valid one. And I think it's time the Whitaker Community Council allows some backbone in communicating to the council what they must do to restore any level of confidence that our Whitaker neighborhood must have in them. And case in point, not too long ago, our Ward 7 council member Claire Surratt was recalled for not informing us about the MX. It happens at the council table too often.
Excuse me, Janet. Those are the kind of political things that we're not going there.
There's nothing political. It's nonpartisan. It was a nonpartisan.
Janet, please quit yelling at me. You know what? I'm going to tell you right now, come on, we're having a good conversation here.
Well, you're calling me political and I'm not political.
Sue, you're in the queue.
Janet, you need to lower your voice.
I'm not political. That was a nonpartisan issue.
Sue, you're in the queue.
Well, I just I just want to say, I want to speak on behalf of Janet. I think she absolutely is allowed to raise her voice. I don't
Thank
agree.
you.
I don't agree. I don't agree with like necessarily veering off into the MX stuff, but I think part of the problem is there's a lot of tone policing that goes on in the council, and it's really kind of obnoxious. But what I was saying about, I just want to make a point of clarification about the facilitation. I actually wanted to suggest that that an open dialogue with these groups could take the form of a conversation and not so much like a Robert's rules kind of thing, where people are able to like voice their opinion, but we don't have to like have such a rigid structure. There are ways of doing this without that.
Right. A general meeting is different than our meeting.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that. That's all I had to say about that. I mean, I just want to say on behalf of my own sort of position on this, I would prefer to do a dialogue with these groups before we just like run to the city and point at a nonprofit and tell another nonprofit and say they're the bad guys. I think it's worth having a conversation with these groups all in the room together and letting people know that people are very unhappy with what they're doing, and actually having neighbors tell them exactly how it's impacting them.
I agree with that 100%. And that's what we did with the I thought it was Burrito Brigade in the park, and it wasn't. It's Breakfast Brigade, and they're not the same. They're different.
I didn't know that. I just looked them up and I couldn't even find.
Well, I didn't know that until we sat down and had a meeting, and we had a good meeting, and we had a great meeting with Burrito Brigade, and we will continue to support each other. And they wrote us a letter stating that they are not the same and that they are supportive of the WCC and whatever we need to do, and that they are not part of Breakfast Brigade. And whatever, that they support whatever decision that we come with. And it's important to us that we had that. Julie, you have your hand up.
Yeah, I do. I appreciate Sue's point about tone policing. And I think everyone can take whatever tone they would like. We all have different opinions, and we're all volunteers here. I am not here to be yelled at. And I am not here to spend my time while people go off on tangents about things that are not relevant to the situation at hand. We all need to work together as a team. Differing opinions vary, but I agree we need to move forward. We need to be more effective. I appreciate the things that Stu brought to the table, and I appreciate the things that Den said about having a voice and having power. But I'm not here to be yelled at. Thank you.
I thank you. I would agree with that. You guys have no idea how much time I spend on this every day for free. And I'm more than willing to talk about anything, but I do not want to be yelled at. And we all are doing this for free. Most of us. And, we do need to treat each other with respect as a team. It's really important that we treat each other with respect, even if we disagree.
I apparently missed something because I was booted offline for about 3 minutes. Was there some yelling going on?
Oh, it's all right, Ken. It's all good. So we agreed we're going to send the letter. I agree with you, Sue, that we're not going to just throw somebody under the bus. There will be continued dialogue and conversations that happen. And just to see, like I said, I didn't even know that it wasn't Burrito Brigade that was in the park. Sophia will draft that letter, and I will send it to the whole board. We'll talk about what we want to do. If we want to make any changes, we'll go through that. And one last thing, and I do need to hand it to Doriandra for just a moment. But just so that you guys know, I called the mission today because I was all talking with them as well about how many harm reduction suppliers there are that frequent our neighborhood and all of that. And I asked them out of curiosity how many empty beds they had. And those of you that have not taken the time to go through what the mission is doing differently than what it did before, I really suggest that you do. Go on a tour. You can see they're graduating people. They don't force people to do anything anymore except to be clean and sober. But they have 70 plus beds available, ready, open for people to come and stay. So, you know, to me, that's a scary number. We do need to hand it to Doriandra real quick, Dan, because we have like 10 minutes left. You're the last guy in the queue. What do you got to say?
So why is 70 beds a scary number to you?
Because our streets are so filled with people, because there's tents on every corner, because they're offering people a viable solution. I mean, they're offering them job training, you know, helping them get their own apartments, all of that. And they're choosing
the problem you're concerned about is that nobody is taking them up on their offer of 70.
Correct.
Okay, well, that's really interesting. So people are having a better time out of the mission instead of into the mission.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah.
And I do find that a little, you know, it's a little disheartening for me.
Yeah, it is. Okay, let me ask you one quick question procedurally on the agenda. You were going to front some Scobert Park renovation stuff, and apparently we're out of time. So are you tabling that to the next meeting?
Well, yes.
Okay.
You know, I mean, so we have 5 minutes. Doriandra, do you need 5 minutes?
I needed a little bit more, so why don't we
go for it?
Well, I mean,
yeah. Doriandra, just update us really quick.
Okay, let's see.
It's been a productive meeting. Thank you all very much.
Yeah, very important. Very good comments and opinions. It's really important. I wanted to just introduce the board to our new communications manager, Jennifer Vincent. She came on with us to volunteer for the Whitaker Art Walk Committee and did a stunning job reinvigorating that project, bringing it up to a whole level that I've never seen in years, and just volunteered tons of her time to be on that committee and elevate it. She designed the artwork for it, got the website up and running, and really mobilized the community so that this has been the most successful art walk I've ever seen since 2021. And so we just made an incredible good fortune to find her in our company. And so she has been hired now for the role of communications manager. And it's been an absolute gift. She's been able to get in and do all those dream updates that have been driving me crazy on our website. We've got a real cohesive look to it now. When you go there, you're able to see our impacts as a neighborhood association and as a nonprofit. So we're just thrilled. You'll be able to see a lot of her work coming out with the new programs we're doing, tons of new assets that we'll use, from billboards to everything. So super excited. I just want to introduce Jen Vincent and have her just say hello to us.
Hi, I don't want to take up a lot of time because I know that y'all are running behind, but I did want to make sure I said hello, and I'm looking forward to meeting all of you on Saturday.
Great. Thank you, Jen. We're so glad you're with us and that you'll be with us on Saturday. And I know folks will want to talk to you, so we'll look forward to doing that then. It's great. Thank you. Okay, so we have a couple minutes left. Elliot had asked back when go ahead, Dan. Okay. Well,
I just wanted to ask that maybe somebody give a 2-sentence explanation of what's going to go on Saturday. for the 50th anniversary celebration.
Yes, I wanted to just hand the floor over to Julie in a second, but my presentation tonight, will do it next time. When the new board was elected, Elliot had requested that we're able to all look as a group at the organizational budget. So that is done and we can look at it next time. We were going to have Vicki Lynn do the profit and loss for the month, but we could have her send that. She sent that today to the executive board. So if anybody is interested in that, we can pass that on. Sorry, Vicki Lynn, and thank you for being here all night. Let's pass it to Julie.
All right. So on Saturday, we will be having the 50th anniversary celebration at Scobert Gardens. It's going to start at noon and end at 7. There will be 2 bands. Rob Tobias and Maya Love will be doing a Beatles and Bob Dylan set from 12 to 2. From roughly 2:30 until 4, we're going to have some speakers. Kitty Piercy is confirmed. Cindy Kohler is confirmed. I believe a former chair of the WCC is going to be there. We will have tables with information on the various grants that Doriandra has gotten us. We'll have ice cream. Pardon?
Could I ask you who is the former chair who's going to be making comments?
Yes, it's going to be Ian. I can't remember his last name right now.
Ian Bray.
Thank you. There's going to be free ice cream from 12:30 to 4:30. There will be free balloon animals and face painting. Peter Wild will close us out from 5 to 7 with some Americana. Davis Northwest Smokehouse is running a benefit for us. They're donating 15% of their profits for that whole day. The city will be there tabling about housing and community engagement. And that might be everybody. Oh, we're going to have yard games. So things like cornhole and ladder ball for the adults, and things like red light, green light, and egg race for the kids, and bubbles and things like that. And raffle. There'll be a raffle every hour, I believe, for the adults. We're selling tickets for $1 each or 7 for $5. And every hour we will give away a gift card to a Whitaker business.
No, from a Whitaker business.
Yeah. Well, we're not giving the cards to a business. There'll be the cards from businesses being given to people who buy raffle tickets. Thanks, Margaret. Questions on any of that?
Julie, you have just done an amazing job. Thank you so much.
Yeah, it's a whole thing. And anybody who wants to come down and hang out, I'll give you a fun job. You can help kids do red light, green light. You can hand out bubbles or help people do some face painting or blow, I don't know, listen to music. It's going to be a lot of fun.
And just for those of you that don't know, Dan, since you missed the last one, and I hope you don't miss this one, on the September 12th, I was contacted by Hop Valley. They want us to come in there and do a fundraiser. They invited us. They put us on their very tight schedule. And then they want to do another one in the winter where we come in and do some big thing. I don't know what. We'll talk about it. Doriandra and I talked about it a little bit today, but we could do something really fun. They have a lot of space there and they want to get involved with us and help us out financially. So those are things that I personally have been working on for, and that's for the council, not for the nonprofit. That is money so that we can do things for the neighborhood. So maybe we can have a Thanksgiving dinner this year, or do something along those lines that we've done in the past. We just need the money to be able to do it. So I am doing my best to try to make up some of that money that we lost. All right. You know what? It is 8:57. I want you all to know that Doriandra is a rock star. She really has been doing some amazing things. Yay, Julie, you too. Thank you guys so much for all the hard work. Chris, thanks for coming. Steen, thank you for being here today. Janet, thank you for coming in. I know it's not easy on a phone. Thank you for working it out and making it happen. And Dan, it's great to see you. Vicky Lynn, sorry that we didn't get to chat, but for a second, Stephen, thank you. And I don't think I missed anybody.
I'm going to get to come on Saturday, so I'll be there to meet everybody.
Okay, great.
Margaret, Margaret,
We want to
Yes,
thank you,
ma'am.
Margaret.
Margaret, I
Yes,
can
ma'am.
do
Thank you,
noon to
Margaret.
2 as a volunteer.
I'm sorry, you can do what?
Noon to 2 as a volunteer. I'll be down there at noon.
All right, Julie got that.
Yeah, we
Awesome.
were
Thank
also
you.
thanking you, Margaret. I hope you
I'm-
got that. We're thanking you, Margaret, for running the
Yes.
meeting
We
so
are
well.
thanking you.
Thank you all very much. I think it was a productive meeting tonight.
A good meeting. You did
Yes.
well, Margaret. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Den, will we see you on Saturday?
Yes, you will.
Okay, good. I look forward to it. Yay. And I'll see you on the 12th for a beer, right?
I'm always up for a beer.
Well, I know. Hop Valley on the 12th. We have a fundraiser.
All right, we'll do it. Okay.
All right, we'll talk about it later. All right, everybody have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
watch your emails.
Thank you,
Good
Margaret.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
So, Briandra, how do I make sure that this is recorded? Like I hit the record button and I hit the, to do the stenographer. Does
It's
it just automatically come to our email?
Yep. Let's just leave. We just leave the call and I'll do it.
Okay.
Wait,
I will
I'm not
leave.
wait a minute. I'm not the host.
No, I am.
Okay, then you need to.
Last time it was emailed to our email.
Yes. So stop the recording.
Okay, hold on.